Today we're going to be looking at Prem players. Cheap, affordable, meta, the best that you can get with money, and are not going to cost you an absolute fortune. We'll also run over a couple of the players that are obviously well worth in their rights having a look. But we're going to start off with the keepers. Now, in terms of Prem keepers, to be fair, it gets very easy very quickly because we've only got so many. Realistically, other than maybe this top page, you're not bothering with the rest. Like Pope, maybe. Pope would probably be the only exception here. We then have Alisson. We have Edison. We have Martinez, who definitely is one of them starter keepers. We have Dudek, and you have Tim Howard. Other than that, maybe Sanchez, but to be honest, that will probably just purely be based on an objective and that you've got him more so than anything. So I don't see any goalkeepers or any special goalkeepers going past this point. It's going to be an inform Edison, Alisson that you'll get to eventually. Maybe Martinez gets himself another nice upgrade. That's probably as far as he goes. So realistically, he would be binned off. Pope is purely on the fact that he's 6'6". He's just an absolute god in net. And then the heroes are just something a little bit special. Tim Howard's brand new into the game. I've not heard the greatest things, but then I've also not seen very much of him. So I'd like to think that maybe people are just kind of unaware of him at the moment. Dudek, always been relatively decent for the past couple of years. I think he's really took a step up. I don't know if they changed animations in goalkeeping, but he seems to be doing a lot better compared to when he first was launched with the heroes. And obviously Sanchez, like I said, is more of an objective, more so than anything. And realistically, as much as, yes, you would probably consider him not necessarily the cheapest keeper you can get, but if you're buying Alisson for like, what, 50,000 coins, 40,000, 45, 40, 44, even if you get him for that much, I think if you think this keeper will last you at least until Team of the Year, what, 3-4 months, probably 3 months, what are we in? November, December, I suppose you throw in October, January, so you're looking at, give or take, just under 4 months. I mean, that's a pretty good deal. That's definitely less than like a KO a couple of days every week. No, it'd be about like 4K a week or something like that. I would happily pay that. So in terms of keepers, it's a little bit swift that you would go for technically the most expensive, but he also would be the best keeper you could physically get. If you need coins in FC25, lootbar.gg has you covered. They are the cheapest trading platform on the game, 8 to 10% cheaper than any others, 8% off if you use the code JT11 at the end at checkout, plus you get 5% extra on coins. With the fastest delivery system going, used by many FC25 creators such as Zorky, Manny Plus, and even pro owners. So if you need any coins, head over to lootbar.gg, make sure JT11's in the promo code, and hopefully you enjoy. So then that moves us into the fullbacks. So we'll start off with obviously the left backs. Now when it comes to them, at the start, it's very much a kind of a first come first basis, to be honest. So let's just get rid of all these keepers. I think if I was looking at one straight off the bat, it would definitely be the likes of Undogi. He was absolutely solid for me. So he's kind of number one on this list, especially for being that cheap, affordable left back. Like he would be definitely my number one. I was looking at Robertson, but to be fair to him, I just don't think he's that guy this time round. Estepinha, purely on the basis of that he does have an evolution coming, well, has an evolution that you could put him in as well. And then you've got the likes of Matheson, and then really, you're kind of just hitting a brick wall. I think for me personally, I would say definitely Undogi would be the only one I would go for here. He is very cheap, like what we're talking 5k at a push. I think for an 82 Italian left back, you're absolutely fine with it. He's got himself the pace. Physical defending with a bit of an upgrade from a chem style, it's going to be more than fine. Whipped pass, quick step on his play styles, can play fullback and wingback plus, and then obviously does the rest. I don't think there's too much more that you need. Estepinha, like I say, is purely here for an evolution purpose, and then obviously Matheson has just got that pace as a low rated player. That's kind of really it. He's got himself the 4-star weak foot, could do exactly the same as Undogi here, and realistically it's just the physicality that he loses, a massive bonus on there. Does have the 74 composure, which will do for now. So for left backs, I think Undogi is without shadow the question. the answer. Right back wise, let's have a look then. So obviously Trent's going to be a big name in it. Walker is going to be the best you could physically get, but he is very expensive. We'll put him over here just so I could show you the difference. Gusto again would be the same also. And then we want to look at the likes of Pedro Porro. We want to look at Delo. Obviously, I've changed mine already from an evolution point of view. You've obviously got Gusto as well as a normal version here. Again, not terrible. For how much you'll pay, you'll be literally under 1,000 coins. Is definitely, could you have worse? You could definitely have worse in this. If we're then looking further down, Wan-Bissaka with an evolution would be nice. And like most of them, Rico Lewis as well. If you could get an evolution onto them, then that's absolutely fine. But the three that I would kind of be looking at if you didn't look at evolutions, 82 Delo obviously, but I did put mine in the ultimate purely on the fact that I'm building an evolutions Man U team, so there's the cat out of the bag. But in terms of his 82, cheap, affordable, very good. Same as Pedro Porro, he's got himself the stats that you need, very similar in aspects of what we saw on the left back. And then Trent is a decent one because you wouldn't necessarily have him as a full-on right back because you'd have him in that fullback plus, but he does have the whipped pass plus, which is exactly what we're looking for here. He would be more of a kind of like a midfielder, more so than an actual right back, but a good centre-back would absolutely pair him fine. When it comes to Kyle Walker, he is a bit expensive. He's definitely worth every penny. I think I paid 61 for him, so he personally is just worth everything. When it comes to Gusto though, very good card. Now he is expensive obviously. He will obviously get another upgrade as well. He's going to get to potentially an 88 if Chelsea managed to do it, and obviously he's coming in at 400,000 for that. Another good one that I would suggest, but definitely Walker would be my favourite. Out of the three that we've got here, I think personally if you're not necessarily overly concerned about your defence, I'd go with Trent. Otherwise, I reckon I'd probably go with a Delo or Pedro Porro, and it'd probably be Delo just purely on the fact that I'm a Man U fan. Which then leads us into the centre-backs. So we've got a lot of nice options here, as always. The first two on the list would always be Virgil and also Saliba. They are the two most expensive, so you could kind of be fair enough with them. Same with Yapstam, very expensive, and also Company. But if you was looking down the list in general, I think the easiest ones, so you've got De Ligt with an evolution, we'll kind of go into him. Martinez, I believe, could go into it. Ake and Akanji is what I was meant to go with. Obviously, Romero could have an evolution as well. You could do his I think his pace, I want to say. Konate is obviously going to be a decent one. Van der Ven's going to be a bit expensive, but definitely up there. Then you would be looking around maybe Konza for an evolution, maybe even Todibo for an evolution, but I'd say the ones that I'm going for here, and obviously Joey Gomez, he's just absolutely nuts. So I think that would kind of be where I'd at with centre-backs at the moment. You've obviously got Joe Gomez, Romero, and De Ligt, all with the evolution that you can put, which obviously you see with De Ligt there. He got a plus 10 on his pace, on the acceleration, and also sprint speed. Again, Man U team, hence why I chose him. But in terms of everybody else, I think you're absolutely fine with either the two Man City boys. I think Martinez does himself some justice. I would suggest going with someone just a little bit taller to hold control of the air. It's why kind of like an Akanji is pretty decent, Romero, and always Konate, 6'4", is a massive unit. Now in terms of Konate as well, I'm pretty sure, is he still around that same sort of 15k mark? Yeah, so you can get him for about 13 and a bit of change. Again, another great centre-back when it comes to it. I feel like with a lot of the centre-backs, they're just very bog standard until you get to that top end. When you're looking at Virgil, you're looking at the likes of Yapstam and also Company and Saliba. They are just a different level. We've obviously got Virgil and Saliba as my parent at the moment. Would love a Yapstam and Company, but that's just not happening at the moment as well. Road to the Knockout Romero, another great shout if you really wanted to. I don't think he's coming in at a crazy price. I want to say he's relatively sound, but if we go for that, yeah, 180 give or take. With the fact that he could go into the 90, I think that's a pretty reasonable price. Then we've got the midfield. Now, this is definitely a bit more interesting because obviously it all depends on how you run the midfield. If you're running it kind of more balanced and have like a box-to-box and a DM and a cam, a box-to-box and a holding midfielder, it becomes very interesting with who you choose. Now, the funny part is really when it comes to the midfield, especially the likes of De Bruyne and Rodri, they're really not that expensive, to be honest. As expensive as you thought they would be. So if I was to go over to the midfielders, we can see if we go by price, I don't think... That's not midfielders, is it? That's position, and we go midfielders. There we go. So obviously you've got the likes of Yaya Toure as number 1, pretty standard. But if you go a bit further down, like obviously you go past all the wingers, you look at like Rodri. For a 91, he's coming in at 52,000 already. For KDB at 90 is already 40,000. They are quite cheap considered these are 2 of the top rated cards in the game. Now, if you have played the game quite a bit, you kind of know why that is. Their pace is absolutely shot. They don't have either. So I would suggest that in terms of what you're paying for them, they are very good ratings for what you've got, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're worth buying at this price. Obviously, Odegaard with the Incisive Plus, it's definitely something to have a look at. You've got Bernardo Silva with a technical that wouldn't really bother here. Gundogan, never a bad shout, to be honest. I think as a box-to-box works really well. McAllister would definitely need the pace increase as well. We then go a bit further down into the likes of Tonali, who is coming in at 26. Now, for the price that he is, I'd say he's absolutely magnificent in terms of price. Bruno Gomes and Joel Linton, if you're looking for that Newcastle mid-free, it's going to be a decent option. Even Madison, to be fair, a 4-4. He's got himself the wide playmaker and shadow striker plus. Could potentially be an option. Marino, very good box-to-box if anything. I think Palmer needs that upgrade more so than anything. And Nkunku as a cam's not terrible. Even Enzo, to some extent, is okay. Not crazy, but okay. Then you go a bit further down, get rid of all of the wingers. Joel Linton is a fantastic option you can go for. Same with kind of like Caicedo. When he gets an upgrade, it's going to be a decent card. Paqueta, as much as they can try and pull him off as a left mid, he's a cam, 100%, but he's not worth getting just yet. Szoboszlai is a very cheap cam, never going to argue. Ugarte is going to be great, but with an upgraded evolution. That would personally be my rule there. Bentancur needs the upgrade first. We then kind of go past some of more of the wingers. Garnacho, Werner, Rashford. We've got Basuma. Not a terrible DM, but I think we're getting to the point now where people want like the 82 and above more so than anything. A lot of these players could go into evolutions as well. So if you are looking at that, don't think because I haven't put them in, you don't want to evolve them. But I think there's a whole host of lists here. Naturally, I'm trying to go under like the 25k mark to really consider them cheap. I do think Tonali, even being that cheap, is very good. Normally that's like a 60, 70k player for a long time. But with all the packs that are out, he's just coming in as absolutely cheap as chips. So if we're looking at wingers then, this is going to be a big one. I don't know how much Rashford's actually coming in at still. I know he was expensive to start with, but I can imagine he's gone down now. 10,000, that's not too bad. Because also when it comes to buying a very cheap squad, you want to be looking at obviously the evolution chance as well. So obviously with Rashford, it's got a massive chance of being evolved, but also being good when evolved. Same with Werner, and to some extent so with Garnacho. I've already evolved him a little bit. Hudson-Odoi, again, another great one if you are looking for cheap. Left wing wise, I know we have the likes of Diaz there, which I want to say is only about just over 20 again now, but he's still a little bit expensive if you are not looking for that cheap. I think Gordon's always a nice option. Doku's going to be fantastic in himself as well, just because obviously with him, it's going to be based around evolutions. Same as also João Felix, and then that pretty much covers everything on the left. When it comes to the right-hand side, obviously, Salah and Foden are going to be some of your favourites. Saka could be thrown into the mix there. I think Pedro Neto is going to be a big one for evolutions as well. And then also you've got Chiesa, who's coming in at a monstrous price just because of the Prem move. If it was to look into the right mid, I think we've obviously got Adama Traore. If you manage to get the levels as the season pass, he's free, so he's got to be worth it. But then you're looking at the likes of kind of like a Bailey with more pace. You're looking at Madueke with the same as well. Even Kudus is definitely not a bad option in terms of pace more so than anything. You've got Johnson in the Cannon evolution if you wanted. I believe he goes to an 84, I want to say. So in terms of what we've got going on here, there's a few cards. There's nothing too crazy. Like obviously everybody's going to be striving towards Salah, Foden, or potentially Saka if you're still looking for him there. So there is a lot of different ways that you can go about it. I think Evolutions is always going to be a nice one if you don't have to spend a crazy amount of coins for it. Which then leads us to strikers. Now this is the point where you've really got to get it right. We look at Haaland, it's about 170 to 180, a bit out of budget for a cheap best striker. But when we look at the likes of an Isaac, we look at obviously Jota, they are coming in cheaper and cheaper. Isaac's 7.5k, nice. We've got Jota who will be just the same, Watkins who will just be the same. So it's really only Son, Haaland, and then the rest are wingers. So it's really only them in terms of gold cards that can be considered massively cheap as such. Gakpo, always a nice starter. Wouldn't say Havertz is massively a starter in this. I do think Jackson is going to be fantastic with that option. Nunez is one of my all-time favourites when it comes to it. Jesus I've never really got on with, if I'm being honest. Same with Solanke and Richarlison. They're just not the players I would associate with. Xerxes, not really happening. Jackson, we've got his inform. Mateta, Pedro Neto. Cunha as an evolved form isn't terrible. Same as Rasmus. He's got the pace already, which is great. I think them two are going to be fantastic with evolutions once they catch on. Same with João Pedro, same with Calvert-Lewin. They are kind of there waiting for their big break of an evolution. And then once you go further down, really, there's no point. You want to be looking at the very minimum to start with. At a Nunez, he is just the first option you should always go for. Jackson's obviously got a decent amount of pace, but I would suggest trying to go with one of these, preferably Watkins or Isaac, as I do think Jota would be better on the left, if I'm being honest. But I do think these are kind of the strikers that we're looking for to be very affordable for absolutely everybody. So that's going to be everybody. Let me know down below how you get on with this. Make sure you do like and subscribe, and let me know your most expensive player you've either bought or packed.